Are live. Welcome to the Standout CEO Show, your gateway to building a personal brand. Here on LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live, today we are going to take a look at how you can build a community with antisocial networking. I mean, think about this for just a second. Now, on this show, Standout CEO Show, we talk a lot about how you can stand out and how you can be doing things that are so distinctive and so different that you'll actually get other people talking about you and what you're up to. Well, today's guest, success coach Liz Hamlet, she has been exploring this new territory. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I saw this several months ago. She's been using what is actually an underused feature here on LinkedIn, which is the social audio feature that not very many people are using. And she turned it into a gathering place for people who do not like traditional networking. So she and her co-host, Yolanda Sissing, they founded this thing that's called the Antisocial Social Club. And on their page, it says, this is for entrepreneurs and antisocial networkers who hate 60-second pitches and traditional networking. So as a result, there's this genuine community that has been gathering and literally getting people to talk on the platform. So stay tuned, join us. We're going to take a deep dive in how Liz created this antisocial, think of it, antisocial social network. This could be the cure for social media.
Yes.
So Liz, welcome to the show. Really interested to go deep on this conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. And as I was mentioning in the green room, it's really timely because we have been doing some planning this morning about antisocial networking and looking at some venues and sort of scoping them out. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, all right. So to start us off, I want you to go back into the beginning, like the early stages of putting this together.
Yeah.
Given the history of social audio, like Clubhouse was super big at the peak of the pandemic. Everybody was looking at it going, oh, this could be the cure. This could be the next giant thing. But since that time, it's clearly faded. And even though, Twitter and now LinkedIn and other platforms sprouted using the same kind of social audio feature, it's not the next big thing. And yet you decided, oh, let's do something with this feature. So how and why, like what was your thinking at the time?
Yeah, so sort of going back to the very start of the idea of Antisocial Social Club was we got together, myself and Yolanda got together. We used to work together in our former corporate lives, and we've done a lot of collaborations. And one of the times we got together and we were sort of thinking about sort of different opportunities that we might explore. And I mentioned about networking and the fact that we'd both been to a lot of networking events that perhaps we didn't feel like it was quite our tribe. We talk about that a lot. So, perhaps, the attendees weren't right or the format wasn't right. It just didn't suit us. And I felt that there was something there. And, having talked it through with Yolanda, we thought, let's give this a go. Let's give this a try. And we thought about what format we wanted it to take. And initially we've kicked it off with audio events, and yeah, we were both on the wave of Clubhouse, in the midst of lockdown. Where Clubhouse went wrong, and I know it's still, there are still events going, I think it became a bit unwieldy. I think that was sort of minimum value, and there was a lot of sort of self-promotion, and it became very much about who shouts loudest, and that really for us didn't suit us. It didn't suit a lot of people who want to network. So when we saw that LinkedIn was beta testing audio rooms, it's still in beta testing, they're still sort of ironing out some of the things on it, we thought, I think this is a really good opportunity because we are championing people that hate normal traditional. So, the events you go to, and it goes around the room or around the virtual Zoom room, and everyone does an introduction for 60 seconds, that dreaded 60-second pitch. And by the third person, you've lost the will to live. You've forgotten what everyone says. And we're very anti that. We want it to be more of a sort of organic, sort of networking experience that welcomes you regardless of different sort of quirks and eccentricities. So we've been doing various events focused on different topics around antisocial networking. So, for example, we've done one recently that was networking if you're introverted. And, that is why I think, you talked about how we're making this work. Audio event is perfect. If you are a neurodivergent or an introvert and you want to be there, listen, you perhaps don't want to put your hand up, although we have had people who are introverted and neurodivergent get involved. It's a perfect way. People can just listen in. They can be doing other things like I do if I'm listening to podcasts, eating their lunch, because we have it at 1:00 UK. And, people can join from all around the world. And I think it seems to really interest. I think there's a real gap in the market for this. There's lots of events and there's lots of things just telling you bog standard, how to go and network. What there isn't is, how to find that networking opportunity that suits you exactly, and how to make your sort of superpowers like introversion or neurodiversion work for you. And that's, we've really seemed to have hit the nail on the head here. And it's got a bit crazy.
Yeah.
It's got a bit viral.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, I really like that. First of all, the world does not serve introverts.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And so given I don't know what the size is, but the huge population of people who identify as more on the introvert side of the spectrum, they're all going, well, I have to adapt every time I do anything.
Yeah.
And so anything that you can create, which is more made for them,
yeah,
it just seems like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like, that sounds great. I'm there. And to me, like, first of all, the medium of social audio, I think, can work really well for people who are more introverted and more shy and are just not willing to put themselves out. Like, first of all, you don't have to worry about your camera, like no camera needed. And then you get to choose your level of participation depending on how you're feeling in the moment, because you can just totally sit and be a lurker if that's what you are feeling like. You can totally just sit there and munch on your lunch while you're hanging out, and or if something occurs to you and you go, oh, look, I got a question, or, oh, look, I have something that I would like to share here, then the tool allows you to jump in and do that. So talk a little bit about your format, because, networking events, I have a friend who is, teaches networking, and she talks about these two forms of networking people. She calls one the skunk and the other one the squirrel. Okay. And the skunk walks into the room at a networking event with a big stack of their business cards and literally sprays everyone with their card. Say, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card, and then immediately go on to the next person. Here, you have another card. And the squirrel does the opposite. The squirrel goes around and is collecting, saying, can I have your card? And neither one of them are focused on anything other than this exchange of a piece of cardboard. And no relationship building, no genuine connection, no nothing. And so in your version, I love the name, the Antisocial Social Club, in your version of being like antisocial, I see not as being like not willing to be social, it's just more like pitchforks and torches against networking as it's done. So in your group of torchbearers, what are you guys up to in terms of changing the rules of networking?
Yeah. Well, I'd say we're definitely not anti-networking, but what we are anti sort of everyone being squeezed into one way of networking. And
Yeah.
that is, I am very anti, the real sales pitch, and also the very referral based approach where, if someone needs an accountant, you have to refer it to Bob, the accountant in the group. I just find it, very icky. So we're definitely not anti-networking, but what we are is sort of very much around the action around, conversations are not salesy when you're at events. And I'm very much more of the, when I do go to in-person events, more of the sort of quality over quantity. I'm definitely someone that I will, look for connection. I'll look for, interesting conversations, people that are doing interesting, potentially could lead to, opportunities for them, or, not necessarily sort of going out there to sell. So we're definitely looking at a different way, quirky networking and social networking, making it work for you, you not having to shoehorn yourself into a style, like the spray and pray networking approach. So yeah, the format we do, we once a month, we're doing audio events on LinkedIn, as we said, short and snappy, 30 minutes. We are, most of our events, we have guest hosts that are specialists in that area. So we had someone, that was a self-professed geek and introvert, talking about how he makes networking work for him. He's a video expert, but finds it difficult in person. So he was sharing how he's got better. And in fact, he's been on the LinkedIn Creators Accelerator. So he had to do networking with that. And we've got one coming up on neurodivergent networking. And we've got someone that's recently been diagnosed with ADHD and how he adapts and makes networking work for him. We keep it very quick moving. We don't talk. The whole premise is it's not just people coming in and listening. I think that's what it tended to be a little with some of the clubhouse rooms. It's very much about the network organically sharing tips. So what works for them as an introverted networker, for how they adapt, them asking questions to the group. And the good thing about, also you said about people can choose their level of engagement, is we can ask the audience to vote on things. We've got like reaction buttons. So, if they literally just want to get involved just with a thumbs up voting, and that's fine. And we make it clear that everyone is welcome, whether you want to just listen in or whether you want to come and speak and ask a question and share a tip. And it's really captured the hearts and minds. I think there's a gap where people who don't feel they fit into that traditional networking model or that referral based networking model, there's a gap for people to sort of how they make networking work for them. And I think we've just been in the right place at the right time.
That's great. I love it. I really like how participatory it can be, and anything that has a kind of crowdsourced or crowd wisdom aspect to it, I think is a real answer to some of the problems and issues that we have with all forms of online interaction, and especially in a setting like this where the people who are there are really self-selected, and you have given the gathering a purpose that everyone can connect with. And I would imagine, I would imagine that the extroverts would stay away. They would go, I don't want any part of this.
It'd be interesting. We get a real mix.
Yeah.
One of the things we're very good at when we host the events is when people do take part, that it is very much around the purpose. It's not sort of promoting self-promotion. We're very anti that. So, we will swiftly move people on if they start sort of taking over the event. And I think that shared collective experience is really helping people to feel less alone. And I think one of the things we do is celebrate, your differences, celebrate your uniqueness, and helping you find ways and opportunities that you can make that work for you in a networking, whether that's experimental networking, walking and networking, or a bowling event, or different sports-based networking, but also helping people see that being on a platform like LinkedIn and engaging is a form of networking. You don't have to be in person.
Right. Yeah, and I think helping to people set people's expectations, you know, I know from my own experience that whenever I go to an actual event, which has any, like whatever the number is, whether it's 100 people or more gathering, the temptation is to be feeling like, oh well, I have to meet a lot of people. Like this is a chance for me to, especially like if you're at a 3-day conference and it's one of these really big things and there's 1,000 people and you're just surrounded all the time by this sort of hubbub and crowd talking all the time and you're just going, oh my gosh, like the FOMO starts setting in and it's like where there's multiple workshops happening at the same time. Which one should I go to and who should I pay attention to and on and on. And it gets a little bit crazy mindy, in that setting. And for me, my approach is when I go to anything like that is always like, well, if I meet and connect with one person so that when I come away from this event, I feel like I've made a new friend and a connection that I can actually continue with, that will be a good one for the two of us. If that happens, then that's a success. That's a huge win. And I don't have to think about any of the rest of the stuff. It's just like, and magic part of my experience is that when I do this kind of thing and I have that attitude, it always happens. I don't know who it's going to be, but I always feel like, well, I'm going to go to this cool thing and I'm going to meet somebody who I've never met before, and it's going to be great. Like it's going to be this wonderful new relationship that happens that will carry on. And so far, that's been the truth.
And what a great approach, going into it thinking, I'm going to meet this one person at this event with 3,000 people and they're going to be really interesting, and there's going to be potential for like learning or collaboration or, just having a great person in your network.
Yeah, right, exactly. So talk a little bit about your experience in doing this, like between first of all, yourself and your co-host and then yourself and the other people that you've brought in who are presenting, and then just what's going on between you and the people who are coming up.
Yeah, so this is a venture that myself and Yolanda have launched jointly, but we've both also got full-time businesses that we run. And, I think it's been quite eye-opening just how popular it's been. We've had like 800 people register for one of our events, 500, nearly 600 for the last one. And people, are quite a good ratio of people turning up. We've had over 200 people over the course of our audio room. So it's not just, 10 people turning up. So I think, that's important to add. And I think also what we're doing is we're trying to create something that's got legs, that, we're talking about our growth sort of strategy today, that is sort of simple and light touch, but has capacity, that this can grow, that it doesn't require a lot of, hand holding as a venture. So I think that's really important. And I think what we've also really sort of capitalized on is both myself and Yolanda are really strong at sort of actively engaging on LinkedIn and building our communities. And we've got fantastic people, and we are, calling them in to come and share their knowledge. So, we don't want it to be all about us talking. We want to facilitate these interesting discussions where people can see that, how important it is to understand that, for them, networking might be perhaps that it's not in a big room with hundreds of people. Perhaps it's more one-on-one. Perhaps it's Zoom, networking. Perhaps it's, engagement. Networking can look like a lot of things. I think people naturally gravitate to that sort of event that you go to, but I think we're just encouraging people to sort of embrace that, they don't like big events and find ways of making it work for them. And, both myself and Yolanda, we're sort of ambivert. So we love meeting new people and I get, energy, but then I have to go off and lay in a dark room and recover because
Yeah,
my
that's
really like drained by being around that many people. And
yeah.
you said about, when you go to these big conferences, the temptation can be that, oh, I want to meet, 60, 70, 90 people. And actually, it's about making it work for you. You might be someone that is a business cards out to hundreds of people. And, sure, that might work for you in a numbers game. But for me, it's more around the connection and understanding about that person and the interest rather than looking at them as a potential sort of client.
Yeah, absolutely. I identify as an ambivert myself. I like being with people. I whether I'm just hanging out in a gathering or if I'm facilitating a group of people, this is something that I really find I thrive on.
Yeah.
But after doing it, absolutely, I got to go hide out somewhere and be on my own.
They're rocking. Don't no one talk to me. I need a
Right.
rest.
Well, I mean, in my previous business, I was the director of an outdoor school in the Pacific Northwest, and so I was leading both young people and sometimes professional development teams in a wilderness setting, and we'd go out for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. These were intensive, and when I was on, I loved it. It was complete immersion, but man, when I was finished, it was like I had a dual personality. Like I literally had to go into a cave and say, "No one talk to me. No one." Like I need a few days to just chill
And that's
and
self-awareness,
recover.
isn't it? That's so important to understand what you need, how you function
Yeah,
best, whether you're a morning energy person or a sort of evening event person, and like working with that rather than forcing yourself to do stuff that's gonna really super drain you. I'm much better one-on-one or in very small groups. I just love that. When it's big group, it just becomes a bit overbearing. So I
yeah.
think, understanding that as well and sort of being self-aware is a key part of like how you make networking work for you and antisocial networking work for you.
Right. So I want to hear a little bit more about how you've been, like what you're thinking about in terms of the future of this event, because it is something that's evolving and you're learning stuff as you go. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the cool thing about doing stuff like this. And what strikes me is that because at the moment it's been an audio event, this has been a social audio event. So
Yeah.
in some ways, it's an event. In some ways, it's a networking gathering. And in
Yeah.
some ways, especially between you and your co host and the people you bring on as guests, it is a podcast. Like it's a show that you're
Yeah.
doing that happens to be live. And, and so, as you think about those elements that make up what you're up to, and I'm wondering, like, from a show point of view, like you host this once a month you've decided, yes, this is what we're doing. And, when you think about that, I mean, I'm doing a podcast. This goes out every week. And, but I could do it once a month, or I could do it once every other month. There's no rule and set, in stone thing that says this is the cadence of what you're doing. And I talk a little bit about how it works for your community in terms of the building and the nurturing of the community when you're doing something that is meeting as infrequently as once per month.
Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting point because I think at this stage we're still very early days. I mean we're sort of like
Sure.
four or five events in, and it's as you can see it's huge momentum that's going. We've got big ideas, so many ideas. I think the challenge is more going to be like we're talking about our growth strategy. We've got all these ideas and building it in and not running before we can walk. So, that looks like, we're looking at potential, membership options. People have been asking for the recordings, and this is one of the disadvantages currently of the LinkedIn audio rooms is it unlike LinkedIn Live like we're doing now, there's no recording.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we've been at the last event, we had someone that was a super whiz who had a soundboard who recorded it for us, looking at how we can make that happen going forward. And I'm hoping that that's an improvement that LinkedIn will make. People have been asking for it. Lots of people are unable to attend and would really like to listen in. So definitely that, podcast. But looking at in-person events, so today we were scoping out a venue in central London, and we're looking at how we can capture that feeling and that sort of informal and that community in person. Sort of bring it so it's not becoming one of the sort of bog standard in-person things. And we're looking at a bit of a hybrid model of sort of different layers of membership. So many more ideas. It's almost like, let's just build on this. And we're also looking at how we engage our community in between those events. They become more frequent, but I think we felt that once a month was enough to sort of keep interest, but not to sort of oversaturate and, people become like, oh God, there's another one. So it's been working really well. And yeah, it's just about pacing ourselves, I think.
Have you been getting feedback from people around connections that they're making from actually being part of an anti-networking network?
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things we encourage to do. So when you're in the room, you can actually go profile, you can click on and connect with. So we're encouraging that.
Cool.
Yeah, and I had in a week, I think on our big event that had like 800 signups, I think I gained alone about 200 followers in a week. So, I mean, this is not why we're doing it, but, it just shows you the sort of, how things go viral and how quickly things can grow. And it's just hitting on, experimenting and hitting on the right thing. And I think, one of the things you said was, how you engage in your communities. Things we're doing very closely is listening and sort of testing out. And that, that's the thing we can do when we're small. And we're keeping it simple. We can test things, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Fine.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the sort of curiosity and the sort of flexibility that we're really embracing with the community.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I think that's a really healthy attitude for just about all this kind of stuff that we do, like treating it like an experiment.
Yeah.
And don't worry if something that you try doesn't go as planned. It's just like, well, we learned that that's not the way to do this, and let's try something else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, that I come from, corporate leadership background, and, like trying to turn an organization of that size was like trying to turn this huge cruise ship. As solopreneurs or sort of startup founders, we're nimble and flexible, and we can test things out, and it's not going to be, hugely expensive, and, it can be and experimental. So, I think embracing that flexibility that we have as sort of smaller business owners.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, I think that might be a really great note to close our conversation. We're right at the end of our time together. So you were telling me that you're planning a live event that's coming up soon. So tell us, like, when is that happening? In person?
So we've got a number of running up to that, a number of audio rooms, but our first in-person event is on Monday the 12th. It's a 10 till 12, come and have some refreshments, meet some cool people, and then you can go about your day. We'll be announcing the venue, which will be in central London. We've just seen this beautiful venue that's very relaxed, very welcoming, and it's exactly the feel that we wanted. We didn't want it to feel corporate. We didn't want it to feel like a disco, too loud music, which is an issue if you're, neurodivergent or ADHD in terms of sort of focus.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about it. And, this will lead, we're going to test this out see what the response is. Do people actually want to meet in person? Perhaps not. And then that will be part of our sort of growth plan.
All right. So if people want to know about that event or want to know about the Antisocial Social Club,
Yep.
where do they go?
Yeah, so I'm obviously tagged to this event. You can contact me through LinkedIn or on the Antisocial Social Club. You'll go in there and it will say, for people that hate traditional networking, you'll know you're in the right place. And we post regularly about up and coming events. And they're every month. They're always on a Monday at 1 p.m. UK time. And we get people joining from around the world. So we'd love to have you to listen, join us and speak and share your experiences of antisocial networking.
All right. Well, Liz, my hat's off to you and Yolanda for creating this event. It's super innovative, super creative, and it's really cool to see how people have been responding so well. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you for asking such interesting questions. And, it's great to talk it through. Sometimes these things sit as ideas in our founder head. So it's really interesting to sort of discuss that and sort of test that with a wider audience. So thank you so much for your great questions.
Right. Well, you're welcome. And for people who are listening here at the end, I just want to remind you that all of the archive for the Standout CEO Show is available, and you can binge to your heart's content. You could listen to all the audio, all the video by going to standoutceoshow.com. It's all there. And of course, the best way to join us is to join us every Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're going live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And until the next time, so long, everyone.